Good morning, CEO Chicks. Welcome to the 90 Days to Dominate class. This is Coach Kristina. I am the finance coach in the group, and today we're going to be talking about business finances. So if anybody that knows me knows I'm super excited about helping people achieve financial wealth. And I think when it comes to your business, there is, huge opportunity to continue to grow. But as you do that, you got to be handling your finances properly. So we're going to talk about that today. Just to give you guys a little bit of background, like I said, my name is Coach Kristina. I have been in the financial industry for a little over 20 years. I can't believe that it's been that long, but it has. In addition to that, I really think that I'm doing my passion in life. And so, like I said, I just want to help educate people and get them to achieve the most financial independence that they absolutely can. And I think when you're running a small business, you get huge opportunities that just somebody that's working a 9-to-5 job doesn't necessarily have. And so today I really want to help you make sure we've got that set up properly. And, for me, this was, I call it my love-hate affair when it comes to finances. I do love what I do and I absolutely enjoy helping people. But just to give you a little background, I struggled in finances in my early 20s. I came from a family that was decently off. They weren't horribly bad, but we just didn't talk about money. And so, I graduated college, got a decent job, but quickly realized that I was spending almost double the amount of money that I was making each year. And so I had to get myself back under control, if I could say it that way. And I've made all the mistakes, not only personally, but maybe even in my business too in the beginning. And then I've just learned. I educated myself. I sat with people, $1 million producers in my industry, and really asked them, what are the things I need to do? And so in those transitions, over that first couple of years in my 20s, using those transitions in my life to put myself in a better financial position. So I speak to you today not only from understanding, hey, I know how it is to run business. I know that we've got 15 hats on when it comes to running business. We're doing marketing, we're doing, social media. We're trying to make sure that we have employees okay. I get all of that. I definitely do. But ultimately, to have a very strong, viable business that at some point you can either sell or pass on to your children, whatever you want to do, you've got to have your finances in order. And so that is my goal today, is to help you get to that next level. And again, as we go through this class, this 90 Days to Dominate course, I think it's like no other, because we're just real with you and we give you real facts about how do we get to that next level. And my job today is to help you get there. So without further ado, we're going to jump right in today to this 90 Days to Dominate class, and we're going to be discussing business finances. So here's basically what we're going to review today. We're going to talk about budgeting, okay? That's, that ugly, dirty word nobody likes to use, but we have to budget. You got to know where your money is and where it's going. So we're going to talk about that and ways to make that happen. We're going to talk about funding your dream. I hope that as a business owner that you are really doing your passion, because honestly, if your passion and purpose is what you're ingrained in, the money will follow you. You don't have to chase it down. It'll come after you. So we're going to talk about ways to fund that dream. We're going to talk about business credit and how to get that established. We're going to talk about saving, why that's important when you're a business owner, and even investing. And lastly, a lot of people miss this step, but we're going to talk about protection also. It's hugely important to me that as you're building this financial wealth through your business, that you do protect it. And a lot of times people miss that step, and then a catastrophe happens and everything that they thought they were doing gets completely wiped out. So I'm going to tell you or teach you some ways to help avoid that. So let's just start with budgeting 101, right? So budgeting is not something most people just innately love to do. Let me just be honest with you. We have to track what's coming in and what's going out. We do it personally, but you also really do have to do it in a professional environment. And so when it comes to your business, budgeting is highly important. I personally use what we call a 70-30 rule. So my operating expense, meaning the money that we use to go in and out of the business to flow on a regular basis, is 70% of everything we make. Easy math here. If I make $1,000, I know 700 of those dollars are going back into my business for operating expenses. That could be to pay my staff. That could be for marketing. Could be for whatever that I want to use it for. but that 70% needs to stay in the business. The other 30% we are going to set aside for saving, investing, other opportunities, and we're going to get to that in just a second. But again, you have to get yourself in the concept up front that I'm going to save first. And you see that's my second tab on there. That should be the first thing, whether it's personal or professional. You have to set that money aside first. So what do I mean by that? A lot of times in businesses, we will start with, let me pay this out, let me pay that out. Every time we get paid, we're paying somebody else out immediately, okay? I'm gonna tell you to stop doing that and pay your business back first. So you're going to set a certain amount aside. For me, it's 30%. Set that amount aside every time something comes in. Again, going back to that $1,000 example. $300, so 30% of the money that I make on that $1,000 is going to go into my savings account. Before I pay anybody else, it's almost like it doesn't exist. I've completely set that aside. Now, I'm a tither, so I do tithe 10%. So of that 30, 10% goes to tithing. The other 20% stays in a business savings account until I'm ready to move to the next level with it, which we'll definitely talk about. Now, I know what you're probably saying. How am I going to get started there, right? So here's the question. And, oops, sorry. No, I've got little things here. So here's the question. If we are starting out in some reform, so meaning maybe we cannot start with 30%. Maybe we can only start with 5% or 10%. That is absolutely okay. All you need to really do is just start saving first. Get yourself in a habit, okay? And let me tell you, it takes on average 90 days to change a habit, right? If we start working out today, the chances are we may not continue to work out right away. But if we do it for 90 days, it becomes ingrained in what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then we crave it. We want to go work out. It's the same thing with your finances. When you begin to kind of shift that mindset and begin to say, all right, I'm going to save first. I'm going to take 10% of what I make and I'm going to set it aside. When we do that, we start to build that habit over and over and over again, and then we can begin to increase that over time. So if you make $1,000 and you can only save $50 or $100, that's okay. Don't not save, still save, but you want to at least build yourself up to that over time. That's all I'm saying, okay? You need to definitely be doing bookkeeping. I call it double entry bookkeeping. That's because you should always have a plus and a minus, okay? So if you buy inventory, you're gonna do a plus sign to your inventory. If you are, and you're doing a minus sign to your cash because you use cash to pay for that inventory. So you need to be keeping good records and good books. And I'm going to tell you why, because I'm going to give you some other significant nuggets towards the end of this call. But it's so important that you do that on a regular basis. Okay. So I'm going to, double entry bookkeeping is highly important to me. Bookkeeping period is highly important to me. You have to have a track record of how you're growing these finances. And then you're going to establish financial goals. Okay. So you see, I kind of put some of these things before I said, go out there and tell me what your goal is. Well, guess what? You need those first 3 steps in order to create what the goal is going to be anyways. And so I always say, if you have a good idea of where you're at, so if you've done the 70-30 rule, if you've saved, if you know what you're doing as far as bookkeeping, now you can go back and say, all right, what am I trying to achieve this year? Again, everybody is different. In the beginning of my business, I personally, my first year of business, I remember, I just wanted to do $50,000 gross revenue, okay? That was it. That's all I wanted to do. And so I had to break that down. How do I achieve 50,000? What does that mean? Who am I paying? All those sort of things. But the goal was 50,000. Here I am, 10 years later in my private practice. And honestly, I've got a pretty lofty goal this year. We're trying to hit $500,000 gross revenue. Again, that's happened over time. It did not happen overnight. So I tell everybody, whenever you're doing a business, it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so, it will grow, and it has happened. And I can sit here confidently and say, okay, we want to run a $500,000 business this year. What is that going to look like? What strategy are we going to put in place to make that happen? But I know that is our strong financial goal for the year. You got to make sure you're paying taxes. So I feel like a lot of times small business owners miss this step, and then they wind up paying more in the future because they didn't do this properly in the beginning. So many business owners pay quarterly taxes. They just, they basically are sending a check to the IRS each and every quarter. Again, if you don't have this set up, it's okay at this moment, but I will tell you, it needs to become a priority on your list. The IRS is not somebody that you want to play with. They will come after their money one way or the other. So I really want to make sure each of you do that properly. If you don't know how to do it or not sure how to set those up, go see somebody that does taxes or go see a CPA. They will certainly help you get that set up. I know for those of you that are going to be on our next 90 Day to Dominate call, I have 2 special guests that are coming. One will be talking specifically more about taxes. The other is going to be talking in the realm of investing. And so I'm excited about that because it's going to give you a little bit more deeper, in-depth process to what we're going to do there. So super important that we pay taxes. And then I always tell everybody, you got to review on a regular basis. So you can't set a budget at the beginning of the year and never go back and look at it. Every quarter, you need to be looking at that, especially because guess what happens? Sometimes in business, we have a great quarter, right? So maybe in a 3-month period, we just killed it and we really made a lot of money in those 3 months. I know if you're in, let's say if you're somebody that does taxes, this first quarter of the year, this is their moneymaker. It sustains them for the entire year. So they have to be very cautious about what they're doing in this first quarter. And even though they're making the most they can, they just can't go out there and spend it all right away because their business is going to slow down after April 15th. And so everybody needs to be reviewing those finances on a quarterly basis. So when it comes to budgeting, that's kind of the basic. I mean, those are the things that you got to have in place in order to get yourself set up properly in budgeting. And one of the things I'm going to tell you guys because I'm going to give you some homework at the end, but as you're doing some of these things, type your questions into the 90 Days group chat on Facebook. If you do that, I'm happy to answer those questions when it comes to budgeting and getting you in a better place. Okay. Let's go to the next topic, which is funding your dream, right? So we all have established this, great purpose, and we're driven, and we're really trying to get something to grow in our businesses. And a lot of times it just comes back to my dream. My dream, honestly, was always to own my own business. I just happened to be good in the area of finances, and it really, for me, it worked out. But the thing is, I don't feel like I'm coming to work every day. I really feel like I get up every morning. I'm excited about the opportunity to help somebody get where they need to go. And then yes, in turn, it comes back to me too, but I truly enjoy what I do on a day-to-day basis. So when somebody talks about funding or how do I get finances for my business, I always call it's funding your dream. If you're really funding your dream, you're going to find a way to get money, okay? So I want to start on the small side of things, first of all. So you're going to do a business. There's definitely some things that you personally can do in order to create more cash flow, okay? The first thing is you definitely personally can do an influx of cash into the business. There's many different ways I've seen people do this. I'll give you an example. I have a great client, been with me, probably the entire time I've been an advisor. And, honestly, him and his wife used to work at Home Depot. There was nothing fancy or flashy about what they wanted to do. He decided, after working for a few years in that area, that he wanted to buy his own business. And he was really good with, that side of things as far as building materials, those sort of things. So he found a painting company and decided to basically use the equity in his home in order to fund his painting company. Now, again, the numbers have to make sense. So don't always just jump out and say, oh, I'll just borrow from here or I'll borrow from there. Don't do that, okay? But if the numbers make sense, then, okay, we can have that discussion. So here we are, he basically bought a little over $500,000 business, okay, by taking some of the equity out of his home. So he wound up putting up a portion of his own money, roughly $150,000 to almost $200,000. The bank actually loaned him in a small business loan the other $300,000 to buy this business, okay? Again, you have to look at the long term and how things are growing. This husband and wife duo that I'm talking about, they are the epitome of hardworking people, okay? And so fast forward a little over 10 years since he's bought this business, and now he runs a $7 million business a year. And so I say that to say, yes, you can personally take money and put it into your business. Make sure the numbers make sense. Make sure you understand how you're going to make money. Okay. And that may be a very viable option if it's, your own personal finances you want to dig into to make that happen. Okay. Friends and family. Oh my goodness. You'd be so surprised at how many people that do know you would support your dream if you had a conversation with them. And, that is so huge to me. I remember when I wanted to branch out and start my own business, we had to make some serious adjustments in what we were doing. So I didn't necessarily ask my family for money, but what I did ask was for a huge support. So we at the time decided to downsize our home. We actually moved in with my parents for about a 6-month period. Okay. Now again, at the time it was just me and my husband, so it wasn't that big a deal, but we had to make that sacrifice in order for me to realize my dreams. Okay. And so I go back to say, my parents were willing to help on that scale. They probably would have given me money too. I just wanted to do that part on my own. But I knew if I was going to do that, we needed to step it back for a moment. Okay. And I tell people all the time, it's not easy being a small business owner every day. Those first couple of years are going to be hard, but they're going to be worth it. And so I remember, 1 month, literally my net income was $600. I don't know. I mean, nowadays you couldn't do anything with $600, honestly. And so, I remember thinking, oh my goodness, how are we ever going to make it if I don't, turn this around? But again, I just kept sticking to the fundamentals, making sure I was doing proper marketing, make sure I'm meeting people, make sure I'm telling people what I'm going to do. And eventually that wheel will turn and you'll get to a better place. So friends and family are highly important. Again, not everybody is going to be supportive, and that's okay. Just stay away from the negative people is all I'm going to say there. But if somebody has an opportunity to invest in you and they believe in your dream, it's really easy for them to hand over some money. And then the last thing is just sales. And so when I say that, sales across the board. So you're going to have sales in your business. I had a great post the other day on our page about just upsell. So if you're going to sell something, always have the secondary item in your back pocket as to what you want to offer next, because you want to be able to give that as a choice. So that definitely could be it. But again, just kind of going back to funding my dream, you know what? We had a garage sale. We sold everything we didn't need at the time. We just needed to get some extra cash flow in so I could get my business up and running off the ground. And so at that point for us, it was by any means necessary. And so if you want to make that kind of sacrifice for your business, and that it's going to reap the reward, I would definitely do that. Okay. But again, all of those are really just smaller ideas that kind of bring in immediate cash. Okay. But I want to talk a little bit about funding on a bigger scale. So let's say you are operating a business and you're growing and those sort of things, and you really want to look at getting maybe investors or people to help fund that dream long term. Here's some great ideas that can help you get there. Okay. Number one, angel networks. There are people that will just literally give money to help. We call them angel networks, and they're all over the United States, but ultimately they're giving money to your business because they believe in it. Okay. Contrary to maybe who you know or what you hear on the news, there is no shortage of money in the United States. There is plenty of money out there. And so the goal is, are you going to go get it? And that's really the bottom line. There are companies all over the world that literally sometimes just give money, and that's not everybody, but they believe in a great idea and they will give the money, sometimes without the return. And that's why we call it an angel network, because usually they're just giving those funds. Crowdfunding sites, there's a lot of good crowdfunding sites out there. Again, if you have a dream, maybe you're trying to just get $5,000 or $10,000 together and you're trying to figure out a way to do that, put it out there on one of these crowdfunding sites and let's see what happens. Again, that's another marketing thing. So you really do still have to market it on those crowdfunding sites and even on your social media, but you definitely have opportunities that can happen in. Okay. I'll tell you about a young lady out of Texas. She's very, very smart, engineer mind, definitely, one of the brightest young ladies I've ever met. Put her dream on a crowdfunding site in hopes of basically raising $100,000 because she needed that to build a prototype. But again, not only did she do that, she went on news media outlets. I mean, she was just everywhere. But before you know it, she had the $100,000 off that crowdfunding site. So it definitely can happen. It's about how strong and diligent you are in your passion about your dream. All right. Venture capitalists. So venture capitalists are a great way to get larger influxes of money. So once you have an established business and you're growing, and let me go back for a second here. All venture capitalists are going to ask for bottom line numbers when it comes to finances, okay? They're gonna wanna see a balance sheet. They're gonna wanna see your gross revenue. So that's why it goes back to that budgeting. You've gotta do that from start, because sometimes they ask for it for the last couple of years. And so, it is highly important that you have that together already. Do not go to a venture capitalist and not have those numbers available. But once you have built a strong, viable business, okay, and you're making some money and doing some things, you want to come back and you can reach out to some venture capitalists that will help you grow that to the next level. They have connections that you may not have, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's making your product cheaper, whatever it is, they're going to have some huge opportunities. So venture capitalists are a great way if you're really looking to expand. And I'm working with a client right now that has a beauty line product that is going to be expanding that product. And so that's what we're talking about. And that's what we're looking at, because at this point, she's grown a lot, but she's probably going to need somebody to help her take her to the next level. And I know that can happen with the right person, venture capitalist on her team. And so, the health industry, the beauty industry being $1 billion business, it's definitely some huge opportunities there. Visit your local Small Business Administration. You can go online to SBA.com or SBA.gov. You can go online. There's definitely opportunities there to have to get loans or things like that. That could be an influx to your business. I also use the Black Business Investment Fund. That is a loan opportunity. And even the National Association of Women Business Owners, they have some loan opportunities. So I put those loan opportunities. I always like to start with, hey, where can we get money that's going to be given to us, okay? But when you come back to venture capitalists, small business, Small Business Administration, the Black Business Investment Fund, and even the National Association of Women Business Owners, a lot of times those people are giving you small business loans for your business. I want to say a couple of things here. You need to at least be in business for a year, okay, before you apply for a small business loan. Nobody's usually giving startup money to small business owners. That is more of a grant opportunity. But again, even most grants I see need at least a year in business. And most will want you to have at least 3 years under your belt. So again, going back to this is definitely a marathon, not a sprint. You got to be building your business on a regular basis. There are going to be hard days. Going to be days where you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. But if you keep doing that same thing over and over, eventually that will shift. And so when it comes to needing a loan for your business, sometimes that happens, and that's fine. I am definitely, I consider myself a believer. I'm a lender, not a borrower. Definitely get that. In this situation, it's all about how you're capitalizing your business, okay? So what I'm going to say to that is, you don't go out and apply for a $50,000 loan knowing that you only need $5,000, okay? Be realistic about your expectations when it comes to this loan, because it is going to have to be paid back, and we want that to be done in the most fast, efficient way that you possibly can. Okay. For the beginning of my business, I actually did about 2 years in, opened a line of credit at the bank. They gave me up to $50,000. We didn't use all of that, but I did. There was times where I wanted to expand or I wanted to grow in some things, and I had to dip into that. We just always had a clear plan of how we were going to pay it back. My number was a year. So if I couldn't do it, if I couldn't pay it back within a year, we didn't do it. Okay. If I didn't have a clear expectation of how I was going to pay it back over that year, we didn't do it. But again, if I could weigh the pros and cons and the revenue would work out and I wouldn't have that issue, absolutely. Definitely an opportunity to be able to fund your dream in a big way. Okay, so there's a lot of other ways out there, I do know, in order to get money, grants, those different things. I do have, in pretty much all of these areas, I do have some connections and contacts. So if this is something that you're really serious about, reach out to me. I'll definitely help you, but I'm going to be very honest with you. If you don't have your books together yet, there's no way I can take you to the next level or even introduce you to somebody that that can help you in this area. You got to have those together first, okay? All right, so let's talk a little bit more about business credit, okay? Because as your business grows, all businesses need to establish business credit, because there is going to be times where maybe you want to buy a property for your business because that's where your office is going to be. Maybe you want to have lines of credit with your suppliers and those sort of things. This is all going to come back to business credit and what you have established. I realize that most business owners, and I mean a lot, I'm not talking about a little bit, it's like 70%, 75% of business owners have no idea how to establish business credit. So I've got it here, and I'm going to walk you guys through it, okay? Number one, you need to incorporate your business. If you want to establish business credit, you need to go back and incorporate your business, okay? And so I'm going to be looking at a couple of things here when I go through these, all right? So number one, whether it's a corporation, S Corp, C Corp, even maybe an LLC, any of those sort of things, you need to make sure that your business is definitely incorporated. The reason is because it becomes a legal entity separate from yourself, okay? If you're a sole proprietorship, you're taking on all of the risk in your business. If you separate yourself and become a S Corp, C Corp, or LLC, the business is its own entity, so they don't come after you in the event that something goes awry. And so you need to make sure that you've established that right from the beginning. If you don't have an employer identification number, that's got to be the next step. You need an EIN. All states, the EIN is your federal number, of course, but you also need to register with your state. So that's important too. But you need to have your employer identification number. It's easy to get. Go to irs.gov and walk through the process of getting the employer identification number. It's a maybe 15, 20-minute process, and you'll have it, okay? You need to get what's called a DUNS number. This stands for Dun and Bradstreet. So a DUNS number is the way that business credit is looked at. Very similar to your FICO score for your personal finances. Me personally, I think that especially as this has grown in popularity over the year, I do still think it's important to get your DUNS number. You want to make sure that you're building business credit, and so the only way to really do that separate from just having accounts in different places, and we're going to talk about that, is having the DUNS number and allowing that to build over time. You want to get a business checking account. So I can't tell you enough how it is so important that you do not intertwine your finances, both personal and professional. You need to have a personal banking account, and you need to have business banking accounts. You're going to need an EIN to even establish a business personal account. So I say that to say, open a business checking account. Again, if you're new and you're a startup, you may be saying, oh, I'm not making that much yet, or no. You still need to establish a business checking account. You're going to do that no matter if you're making $50 or $50,000, mainly because you have to separate those two areas. If you start off and you're commingling that money, and the IRS ever audits you, it becomes a big issue. So you really want to have that separate right from the start. You may need to get a free business checking account, and that's okay. There's companies that offer free business checking accounts. Again, if you need that personal information, privately inbox me and I'll send you a couple of banks. But ultimately, you definitely have to have that. You also need a business savings account. So I know a lot of people will do the business checking account, but won't do the savings account. So I'm going to tell you to establish the savings account too. Kind of going back to our rule in the beginning, that 70-30 rule, because some of this money is going to go into the savings account and we're going to use it for another reason, okay? And so that's very, very important to me when we're talking about, building long-term, because your savings account is going to be your collateral in the beginning. So when I talk, and I'll come down to loans in a second, when I talk about that, you're going to need collateral for your business. And sometimes in the beginning, the only collateral you have is what you've saved. And so we want to discuss that. Get a commercial credit line, okay? So commercial credit lines help build your DUNS number. And so let's walk through that for a second. So your DUNS number, let's say you have a phone bill or an electric bill, those sort of things. You can attach your DUNS number to that. And so that reports to your personal credit, okay? And that is very, very important when we're building business credit. So ultimately what I'm saying there is that when you're building that business credit long-term, that DUNS number is going to attach. Oh, sorry guys. My computer is doing its own thing today. So when it attaches, we want to make sure that that DUNS number is attached to those commercial credit lines so that you can continue to build over time. Hi, I see a couple of people joined us with this morning. So going through, I know we've kind of covered a lot, but we will definitely have a chance to have this posted and re-review, and I'll touch base on it in a second. But basically coming back to that business credit as a whole, you're going to have that commercial credit line in order to start really building your credit with businesses long-term. What happens is when you go apply for a loan and they need references in regards to your business credit line, the commercial credit that you build is highly important, okay? And so whether you're gonna have a cell phone, you're gonna have a, maybe electric bill, whatever it is, you need to put something in the business name, okay? As small business owners, a lot of times we work from home, we can do things on the go sometimes. That's all okay. That's perfectly fine. So move your cell phone into the business name, okay? But definitely be establishing that long term. All right. So getting that commercial credit line, very, very important. Getting a loan. This goes back to why you built your savings account. So like I said, in the beginning, we build that 70-30 rule. We're trying to do an operating expense off 70% of everything we make. 30% of that is being set aside. In that savings account, as it builds up over time, you can use that to establish a loan at the bank and use your savings account as collateral for that. So again, we don't always have to get a loan, but sometimes to expand, it's really important that you have the opportunity to do that. And so if I have $10,000, $20,000 saved in my business savings account, and maybe I need a loan for $10,000, okay, I'm able to get that. That way I don't have to spend down my own cash. So I have money and wiggle room if there's a problem. In addition to that, I have this line of credit available, so if I want to expand my business, I certainly can. This is very important when you have product lines, okay? So when you're specifically selling a product, a lot of times I see businesses start to fail or not grow because they cannot maintain their inventory. And so in order to maintain your inventory, you usually need to have some sort of line of credit available just in case. So for lack of better wording, let's say, you're a small business owner and on average, maybe you need about $5,000 in inventory a month, and then bam, maybe some box store orders $50,000 in inventory from you in 1 month. How would you handle that? Are you going to tell them no because you can't handle it? And sometimes that happens, that's okay too. But for the most part, we want to be able to handle that. And in order to do that, we've got to be able to have access to expand our inventory, and sometimes loans will allow us to do that. If you're going to do a loan or any type of credit, anything like that, pay on time and pay in full, okay? Pay on time and pay in full. You do not want to get behind on these sort of things, and especially when it comes to your business credit, because it's a little harder to repair, and they're going to look back longer years. And so pay on time, pay in full. Highly important when you're building your business credit. All right, so to kind of go back for a second here, I'm going to go back to my overview. We've talked about budgeting. We've talked about funding your dream. We've talked about business credit. We've talked about saving, talked about investing, or we're about to talk about saving, and then we're going to talk about investing, and we're going to talk about protection, okay? So we're about halfway through here. We've probably got about another 20 minutes that we're going to go through and hit some of these finer points now that we've kind of established a good, solid foundation. Okay. And I always like to say a foundation because, if you build a house, the first thing you need to do is make sure the foundation is solid. And so kind of going back to these slides for just a second, I've got to have a strong budget. I've got to know where my record keeping is in order to make sure that's happening. I got to have outside resources when it comes to funding my dream, right? Not maybe personally, but also on the business side of things. And I've got to start establishing business credit so that way if I go to expand in the future, I'll have those opportunities available to me. So let's say we're running on all cylinders. It's happening. We got those things operating in a great place. Okay. Now let's talk a little bit about that savings account I told you to build. Okay. So again, it's 20 to 30% of all the revenue that's coming into your business. So if you're doing that 20 to 30% in your business, right? So if you're doing that in all those spaces here at this point, like I said before, I'm a tither, so 10% goes to that, but 20 to 30, so sorry guys, 20 to 30% of that is going to be, let me say 20% of that is going to be set aside for future expansion, okay? So if that future expansion is available to you in your savings account, you can use that right away. Okay. The other thing is that sometimes emergencies come up in businesses. Okay. So if emergencies are coming up in your business on a regular basis, then you may need to reevaluate how much you're saving, but you still want to have that available. So then people ask me, how much should I put in the savings? 6 months gross revenue is what I want you to kind of have established in your savings. So if you're trying to do $3,000 a month, all right, let's say that's the gross revenue that you're going to do. 6 months of that's roughly $18,000. Again, it's not going to happen overnight, but you want to be able to build your savings account up to that point. And the reason is because if something happens, let's say you get sick, you're in the hospital, any of those sort of things, you've got to have that emergency money available to use just in case you're not able to operate for a few months or even just a short period of time. Any business owner knows, I mean, we're out every single day. If I'm down for a week, it affects my business, okay? So I've got to have that cushion there just to make sure that it's available, all right? Emergency use, definitely collateral use, we talked about in the last slide, being able to use that as collateral if you're going to try to establish a business loan in the future. And then lastly, for future business expansion, this is in reference to, again, if you're building inventory or any of those sort of things, you've got to have a savings account in order to make that happen, all right? The next thing is investing. So when you build a savings account, that's great, but you can't just build a savings account and leave it there, because guess what? The cost of things continues to grow up, and if your money is not growing with that, you're going to be behind the curve always, okay? So number one, I will say when it comes to investing, if you don't have an emergency fund built first, it's not time to invest. You have to focus on your emergency fund first, okay? Even that savings account, as it gets bigger and bigger, you need to have it like in a money market account at the bank, those sort of things that help you long term and are always earning interest, all right? But once you've established that that savings account and it's a good emergency fund, now you can start looking at where other areas can I save over time. Again, your business expands, it grows, it's just a matter of time. Going back to my example with my client that is, bought the $500,000 business and it's worth roughly $7 million today. So between him and his wife, they take home somewhere in the neighborhood of $500,000 a year. Who wants to pay taxes on $500,000 a year? If you have $500,000, you're paying close to 40% in taxes every year. That's $200,000 just going to the IRS. So in order to avoid that, we use small business retirement accounts, okay? That was the very first thing we used. We started small and maybe just an individual retirement account. It's called an IRA, only putting maybe $5,000 or $6,000 a year for each of them in that type of account. And we've expanded over time. Now they have a 401k for their business. They both put about $25,000 a year into that. In addition to that, they have a profit sharing side to that, where they each get another like $20,000 in there. So between the two of them, they're basically allowed to put about $100,000 away into retirement plans that they no longer have to pay taxes on now. And so again, still got a decent tax bill. Don't get me wrong. We took their income from basically $500 to $400, but we saved them almost $40,000 to $50,000 on taxes. And so it's an easy no-brainer in that situation. So you may want to establish a small business retirement plan for yourself, especially if you're starting to make some money and some things are starting to grow. Avoiding taxes is huge when it comes to growing your business long term. Diversify your investments. So again, this just goes back to that old adage, don't put all your eggs in one basket, okay? You're going to hear this a million times from me. Kristina will never say, oh, go buy this stock. It's wonderful. Put everything in there. Because guess what? What if that stock goes away tomorrow? I don't care. There's the best company in the world, but I don't sit on many of their boards, and I definitely don't sit in the room with the finance manager on a regular basis. So I would never tell somebody to put all their investments in one area. Diversify it. Get some stocks, get some mutual funds, get some bonds, invest internationally. There's so many different areas that you can invest in and be diversified and still grow at a good, steady pace. Again, when it comes to investing, it is definitely not a sprint. It's a marathon. You got to know that this will grow over time. You look at things, stock market goes up, stock market goes down. That happens on a regular basis. But if you look at the history of the stock market, it consistently does grow on a regular basis. You just need to give it time. And usually I will tell people, if you're going to invest and you don't have 3 to 5 years to do it, don't worry about investing. Do something else. Okay. The other thing I'll say about investments is it may be very specific to your industry. Maybe you do want to buy out another business, or maybe you want to buy some property and invest in real estate, those sort of things. Those are also great investment ideas for the long term, and really will help you when it comes to building your financial wealth. Lastly, I'll say professional advice and guidance. If you're not good at this area, if you don't know what you're doing in this area, whether it's investments, whether it's real estate, whether it's, I'm going to build a property, whatever it is, get some professional advice and guidance. It is worth the money to make that happen, because God forbid you make a mistake. It's going to be a lot harder to fix that mistake. Okay. So again, this network, we have a great group of women. We have an awesome group of women that will help us out, not only in real estate, we'll also help you out, in finance, all these different areas. And again, I'm not talking, there's other financial advisors in the group besides just myself, but I'm saying that because ultimately we want to grow together, and we got to be educating each other in different areas to make that happen. I reach out oftentimes to the attorneys and CPAs, the tax people in our network, because guess what? I'm not an expert in that area, but my clients need them. Okay. And so I reach out to them, I get the proper advice, I set that first initial meeting. That way my client I know is taken care of and they've gotten the advice that they need. All right, so we talked about investing. Let's move now on to protection, which is our last step, and then I'm going to kind of wrap it up a little bit. And I will tell you, if you would like to put in the comment area any questions that you guys have had today, please do. We will definitely make sure that gets there and I get those answered. If I don't get them all answered today, I will make sure that I answer them in the group chat, and I'm going to give you a little bit of homework when we wrap up today. So protection. So when it comes to protection, just 1 second here. When it comes to protection, here's what I will tell you. Number one is that legal documents. The first thing that you always need is to make sure your legal documents are in place. Give me just 2 seconds. I'm so sorry. Okay, so put those legal documents into place right from the beginning. So again, we have great attorneys in this group. Those legal documents are highly important, okay? And so let me use, it could be trademark, it could be lots of things, but if you don't establish those right from the beginning, you put yourself in muddy waters and, honestly, you just open yourself up to a lawsuit. And I'll tell you why that it's so important. I've seen many good businesses fail because they did not have the proper legal document in place. So when it comes to protection, and I talk about business and across the board, that you've got to have those items in place, whether it's trademarking your information, whether you need to build a partnership agreement, whether you need to build like a non-compete agreement, any of those sort of things, you got to make sure those things happen. Business insurance. Some of you may need to protect yourself as far as businesses is concerned. When it comes to maybe even if you own a building, maybe you have, a daycare, anything like that, you've got to have some liability insurance because, again, somebody gets hurt on your property, somebody gets hurt in what you're doing, then it is going to long-term affect you if you don't have those proper documents and business insurance in place. Key man life insurance. So you're running a business, right? I know for me, I know I'm the provider for my family because of how my business has grown. But my goodness, if something happened to me, not only for me, but also my employees, and I have not insured myself, everything could go away tomorrow, okay? And so, I wouldn't want that to happen to anybody. So yes, I want to protect my personal side, and I put that as the next key down there. I want to protect my personal side because, I want my children to be taken care of and those sort of things. But I also I have a business partner, I have employees, I have key man insurance because God forbid something happened to me. I want to know that they don't have to worry about how we're going to scramble to keep the business together. No, Kristina left this insurance. It's there to build, to help continue to build the business. In the interim, we need some cash flow. That's what that insurance is for, and ultimately will establish that long term. Okay, so consider that for your business. You may not be there right now, and that's okay. But as your business grows, you definitely want to get there. All right. So medical insurance and disability insurance, I also put that on there. Again, these are just some key areas that you want to protect yourself in. I'm not as fluent in medical and disability insurance, definitely have some right referrals to put in place for that. But again, disability happens. I'm going to use my own father as an example in this scenario. My dad, great man, established his business. He has a business, but he's also worked his entire life. His business has been in real estate for a long time. He buys properties and rents them out, those sort of things. However, about 3 years ago, he had a stroke and it made him permanently disabled. Now, he's okay. Nobody can worry about that. He can get around, but he did have to learn how to walk again, talk again, move different things, all those sort of things. He had to learn all the things that we take for granted every day all over again. So he needed disability insurance during that time, needed it to help him with care, needed it to help cover bills, all those different things. And so, think about that. And this happened in his early 50s, ladies. And so, I'm thinking, here I'm in my 40s, the 50s is not that far away, okay? And so I'm saying that to say it's important that you really know that you have the right things in place to protect yourself. Now, again, I'm looking at all these and I'm saying, man, it can get expensive to run a business, right? It doesn't happen all at one time. Pick the thing that's most important to you and make that one happen, okay? Then maybe next year, look at something else. You shouldn't be paying some astronomical amounts for insurance, okay? There's ways to help protect yourself. There's ways to get that number down. But I am going to say you really want to make sure you do that, okay? Because long term, if you do that and you consistently are adding the right things in place, you've protected yourself all the way around. All right. And I know, like I said, we've covered a lot today, but I definitely think don't forget that step. It's highly important long term to establishing your business. Okay, so if you guys have questions, like I said, you can start putting them in the group chat now. I'm going to begin checking those in just a second. You can either do that. I want you to do it here on the system if you can with Zoom, but if you cannot and you need to do it a different way, you can certainly do it in the group chat, or I'm checking the Facebook feed now for the 90 Days to Dominate just to make sure. Because I definitely want to answer your questions. I know finances sometimes can get very confusing. And again, you don't have to know it all at one time. Focus on one thing at a time. So that brings me to our homework, all right? So your homework, okay? I want to make sure each of you have a working budget. So I want you to create a working budget. Now, I will post in the group chat, I'll post a budget worksheet that I kind of use just as a template. Doesn't have to be exactly this way, but just as a template. But again, if you're using something else or you have a QuickBooks program or any of those sort of things, I really want you to sit down and say, what is my working budget? What is the minimum I need in order to be able to run this business on a month-to-month basis? What do I need as far as income to come out of this business on a regular basis? And ultimately, am I making a profit? Is my bottom line making a profit, or am I in the red every month? I am not going to ask you to share these with anybody. This is your own personal working budget. If you want to share it with me, that's perfectly fine, but I'm not going to ask you to. What I'm going to ask you to do is complete it, okay? Because once you've established that working budget, then I want you to set a savings goal, okay? How much do you need to have in savings? Now, I probably will ask you to share this, okay? And again, this will be more our conversation, but definitely want you to have a savings goal in mind that you have to establish. My savings goal is pretty high, and I know that, but it's also based on what my office makes. And so I'm very smart about what my savings goal is and making sure we hit that number, that we're clearly at that number on a regular basis, okay? In addition to that, I want you to set one additional financial goal for this year, okay? Just one. Again, I'm a believer that if you focus on one thing, you're going to get that accomplished. If you focus on 10 things, nothing's going to get accomplished, okay? Realistically, I post books all the time that I read, and so a lot of times I read about how our minds work and those sort of things. 2 or 3 things at a time we can focus on. okay? If you get beyond that, it doesn't get done properly, all right? And so really just one good financial goal for this year that you would like to establish. Again, it could just be setting up a savings account. That's okay. It could be, you want to expand your inventory by $10,000. That's okay too. But I need one good financial goal that you're going to try to work on this year, okay? And then lastly, you're going to write out a SMART plan to achieve those two goals. So savings goal and the financial goal for the year. I want you to write SMART goals, okay? So specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, right? Although y'all know what SMART goals mean. So you're going to establish that SMART goal, okay, on how you're going to attain these two things, okay? And so I say across the board, create a good plan. If your goal is to, you want to make sure you have a savings account and you need to put $5,000 in that savings account, break it down. What does that equal monthly? What do you know that you have to save monthly in order to make that happen? I know what the number is. It's 433. It just comes off of my mind that quick, right? So to save 5,000, I know I need 433 on a monthly basis in a 12-month period, okay? So you know what? That's a car payment. And, again, this comes back to sacrifice of your business. If I don't have a car payment, I can save in my account. So I got to figure it out, okay? And so it comes back to what is most important to you, all right? All right, so I have given you guys a lot of information today. Our goal here at CEO Chicks is really to help you guys get your business to the next level. I know finances, sometimes it's not the funnest topic, sometimes it's not the most exciting thing, and you got to really do some work here, right? I get that. At least in some of the other areas when it comes to marketing and branding, at least you get to see a return on your investment. But I'm going to tell you, the biggest return on your investment when it comes to your finances comes in the long term. And when I say if you establish good books, you get this stuff together now, people will find a way to give you money. And ultimately, that's what you're looking for in the long scheme, whether it's they're buying from you or whether they're literally giving you an influx of cash flow. Both of it works out really great. So I say that to say, work on your business finances, get them in a good place, okay? All right, I want to open up the chat just to make sure that we're all in a good place here. While I'm doing that, I want to just make sure if anybody has any additional questions, like I said, you can type those questions in the chat, of course. All right, I don't see any questions in the group chat. So I hope everybody got good information today. I know I covered a ton, so I hope you took good notes. I will be posting this up in the next 24 hours in the 90 Days to Dominate class. That way everybody can go on there and read through and see it clearly. But ultimately, if you need help, this is an area where I definitely consider myself an expert in this area. I've been doing it long enough. I've seen highs, I've seen lows. But if you need help, understand, we're here to help you. If you really want to get that to that area, and I'm just specifically talking about finances, but maybe it's not finances. Maybe you're good in finances and you need social media, or maybe you need branding. If there's something really specific that you need, go to the online website. Go to ceochicksonline.com and look at what the coaching opportunities are. Those are the people. I'm just being very honest when I say we're very transparent. Our sole goal is to help you get to the next level. We want to see every one of us succeed. And so I think it's so important that you're building your business and your practice, that you get the right tools to make that happen. The best of the world have coaches, okay? Whether it's Tiger Woods, whether you're whoever you are, Michael Jordan, all of those best athletes in the world had coaches, okay, to put them in the right best position. Sometimes we see what you can't see, or we've just experienced something that you haven't experienced. So again, if you need something more in that area, go to ceochicksonline.com and check out the coaching options, okay? You've made the first step, which is this 90 Days to Dominate course, which I think is huge, but I definitely know long-term, establishing that area on a regular basis gets you to where you want to be. Last thing I'll say here is that next week I've got two very, very special guests. I will post them in the group chat. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You don't want to miss it, okay? If you can be on live, I would definitely tell you to be on live. But when it comes to investing, when it comes to, like I said, the CPA tax side of things, these two people I think are truly experts in their area. There are so many changes in the tax law this year that you need to be on top of that right now. Don't wait till later in the year to try to figure it out. You got to get on top of it right now. And then when it comes to investing, we are probably having the most volatile market that we've seen in a while. And I want to tell you guys, when it comes to investing, those are where the opportunities jump out at you. So I don't want you guys to miss next week. It's going to be awesome. I'm super excited to have all of you on. I'm thankful for those of you that are in this 90 Days to Dominate course. If I can do anything to help you guys succeed, don't hesitate to reach out. I certainly will. I don't see any questions, so I'm hoping I answered everything. As you rewatch this or as you go back through and take your notes, make sure if you have questions, post them up in the group. I'll certainly answer them. Don't forget your homework, because I'll be asking about that next week. You got 1 week to complete it. Get yourself there, and we'll go from there. Thank you guys so much. It's been a pleasure. Love you all. Thanks so much. On behalf of all of the CEO Chicks, we appreciate you. And if we can do anything to help, let us know. Have a great day.